Nicholas Angel is undoubtedly London's finest constable. His arrest record far surpasses that of any other officer, and he continues to undergo training to better his skills. This makes his fellow constables look bad, so they have him forcibly promoted and transferred to Sanford, a country village with the lowest crime rate in the country. Sanford is as quiet as it is advertised, which depresses Nick. On his first night in the village, he kicks underage drinkers out of the local pub, then arresting them for disorderly conduct in the streets. One of his arrestees turns out to be his new partner, Danny Butterman, a fat, nonchalant chap whose father, Frank, is the village's chief of police. Nick meets his fellow constables, who all seem to be quite friendly with the exception of the two smug detectives whose names happen to both be Andy. They both seem not much interested in investigative police work. The only other people who seem interested in law and order are the Neighborhood Watch Alliance, a group of long-time residents who care deeply about maintaining Sanford's reputation as the nation's best village. Danny, however, pesters Nick for details of his career in London, which he is certain was filled with the kind of blazing action he has seen in American action movies. For a few days, Nick's most exciting moments are chasing a runaway swan and arresting a guy attempting to steal from the local store. He also pulls over the local solicitor and his much younger girlfriend for speeding. The two of them are on their way to perform at a play in homage to Shakespeare. After the performance, the two would-be thespians are brutally murdered by a dark-cloaked figure with a hatchet. Their bodies are then scattered about on the road and their car wrecked to make their deaths appear to be a gory traffic accident. The other police officers are content with explanation, despite Nick's concerns about the lack of skid marks at the scene. The next day, Nicholas and Danny are tipped off to a possession of illegal weapons outside of the city. They go to the farmhouse with the entire crew, and the guy in charge of the farm shows them the impressive collection of weapons that he's managed to stash over the year. Nicholas is amazed at this very dangerous and highly illegal collection. He, Danny and the rest of the officers confiscate the weapons, which includes a very large sea mine. To celebrate, Danny invites Nicholas out to an evening at the local pub, where he encourages Nicholas to order more than just his usual cranberry juice. He agrees, and after several rounds of beer, they escort local businessman George Merchant, who also seems drunk, back to his estate. They then head back to Danny's apartment, where Danny shows Nicholas his incredibly impressive DVD collection. While they are still watching a movie, another accident is being set up involving George Merchant and his rather posh estate. We see the estate explode and go up in flames. The next day, they are called to the scene of the accident. This time it appears that George Merchant is dead, and the accident was covered with an application of bacon and beans, so it seems like it was a cooking gas incident. But Nicholas knows that George Merchant wasn't killed in an accidental explosion. He once again believes this is murder. The next day at the station, he and Danny are putting together the pieces of the accident, but so far no one believes Nicholas' theory that George was murdered. The following Saturday, it's time for the town fair. Nicholas is unfortunately strapped with working security. Danny wants to see Nick's sharp shooting skills, so he persuades him to play a game. Nick agrees and wins a cuddly monkey while at it. Nicholas is greeted by the reporter Tim. He tells Nicholas to meet him behind the church at 3 o'clock, stating that he has some information to share with him. The church clock strikes 3, and Nicholas stops what he's doing and quickly runs behind the church, but once again it's too late. It appears that a large part of the church roof has fallen on Tim and decapitated him. Frank quickly rules it an accident, but Nicholas suspects otherwise. Nicholas and Danny are left guarding the crime scene, while the rest of the department has gone home for the night. The next day, Nicholas is furious at the rest of his department, who are still believing that the deaths are accidents. But Frank reassures him otherwise, and while Nicholas is busy putting the pieces together of these horrific crimes, the rest of the department informs him that it's Danny's birthday. Nick goes to the local flower shop to buy a peace lily for Danny as a birthday present. He is surprised to see the shop owner, renowned for her horticultural skills, leaving town. She tells him that the land she owns was to be bought by the businessman George Merchant with the assistance of the local solicitor. Then, when they were both killed, the reporter informed her that her land was much more valuable than what the businessman offered her, so she has sold her shop to a land developer from the city. She also reveals her connections to Skinner. When Nick briefly goes outside to his car, the dark-cloaked figure stabs the woman to death with her garden shears. Nick gives chase but cannot catch up to the villain, who was wounded in the escape. Convinced that Skinner's connection to the property deal and attitude toward those murdered is sufficient evidence against Skinner, Nick takes the police force to confront him. But Skinner has no wound, and his store's surveillance tapes establish that he was on the premises all day. Nick is prepared to give up when it occurs to him that instead of a single murderer, several dark-cloaked murderers might be working together. This theory is confirmed when he is attacked in his hotel room by one of Skinner's employees, who is wearing a dark cloak. Nick defeats him and then impersonates him when Skinner calls on the phone to see if Nick has been killed. Nick traces Skinner to a castle outside of the village. There he finds the Neighborhood Watch Alliance, clad in the dark cloaks, chanting ritualistically. The NWA reveals that they have all been behind the murders, with their motive simply being to maintain the pride of the village, and had nothing to do with the property deal between those who were murdered. Anything that could strip Sanford of its status as the nation's best village is violently opposed. The solicitor and his girlfriend were murdered because their terrible acting brought ill repute to Sanford's theater company. The businessman was murdered for owning a tacky home, the journalist for poor spelling, and the horticulturalist for even thinking about moving away. Nick tries to arrest them, but Frank and Danny appear in support of the Neighborhood Watch. They chase Nick through the grounds of the castle, where he finds the remains of other people the Neighborhood Watch has killed. They surround Nick, and Danny steps forward and stabs him. Danny takes Nick's body away in the boot of his car. At a safe distance, he lets the quite alive Nick go. He had faked Nick's death using ketchup packets for blood and Nick's notebook to avoid actual skin penetration. Danny refuses to believe his father and the NWA are responsible for murder and persuades Nick to take his car and return to London. In London, Nick sees a collection of action film videos and is inspired to return to Sanford to put an end to the Neighborhood Watch. He takes the arsenal from the police evidence room and confronts many of the Neighborhood Watch members in the town square. They are equally as well armed as he is, and he conquers them only through the timely assistance of Danny. They head to the local pub to hunt down its owners, who are also members of the Neighborhood Watch. Frank and the other constables, in full riot gear, surround Nick and Danny. But Nick is able to persuade the constables that he is doing the right and Frank has been behind the killings all the while. Frustrated, Frank runs away. Nick and the other officers go to the supermarket to apprehend Skinner, but when his employees put up a spirited fight, Skinner is able to escape with Frank in a cop car. Danny and Nick give pursuit also. Skinner and Frank are forced to abandon their car, and Nick and Danny give chase on foot. Nick manages to get to Skinner and they begin to fight in what looks like a scale replica of the village. Nick wins when Skinner falls and a piece of the model village church pierces through his chin. It doesn't kill him though. Frank tries to flee in Nick and Danny's car, but crashes into a tree. Nick's former London superiors arrive in Sanford to congratulate him on the blockbuster arrest and investigation, also begging him to return, as London has become crime-ridden in his absence. Nick refuses because he has made such good friends and finally learned to enjoy life in Sanford. However, at the station, the last remaining member of the Neighborhood Watch attacks and tries to kill him. Danny just in time jumps in and takes the full brunt of the gun blast. In the ensuing chase, the sea mine is detonated, destroying the entire police station. But no one is killed. Danny is promoted to sergeant and Nick becomes the inspector. Danny and Nick continue to patrol the streets of Sanford together with Marcus and Mike from Bad Boys as their role models. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to comment and subscribe.